materials, the lesson, are for our personalities who are leading us. No charge for the meal. Come and have a meal with us. We'll be eating at 5 o'clock. But you need to make a reservation so we can plan for seats and plan for at the table and also for the meal itself. Let me know if you want to try to plan to attend. You say, well, I'm not sure. I don't know. Well, go ahead and put in a reservation. If it turns out that you can't come, that's fine. That's no problem at all. I'll eat what you don't eat. That's the 29th and the 30th of this month of January. All right, let me move some of these things just around a little bit. I appreciate the girls allowing me to indulge myself in the new instrument right here. And I really don't play the guitar all that, even though I've been playing it for many, many years. I'm not an expert guitarist either. But bring up that first slide there, Carter. I want to begin the message. I couldn't begin this message without teaching you this melody because it has to do with the text. John's Gospel, chapter 14, if you want to turn in your Bible. John's Gospel, chapter 14, verses 1 and 2. And a number of years ago, many years ago now, a talented Christian musician came to our church in Vandale, Arkansas, named Charles Ritchie. He is the only one that I've ever heard sing this verse of Scripture, and I've been singing it ever since I met him. He is, I'm not in contact with him, though he is one of my Facebook friends, or I'm one of his. He's still playing. He's still being used of God. He's become more and more amazing. The thing that impressed me when the first cassette tape that he published was only Scripture songs. And I already loved Scripture songs and only had a few. I'm writing a book right now publishing the words, chords, and music for all the Scripture songs that I know. There are about 30 of them now. And there are, of course, many more verses of Scripture in the Bible. But these are the ones that I know. I've heard others, but I don't know how to attribute them. I haven't always sung all of them. In the Gospel of John, chapter 13, Jesus he celebrated the Passover meal with his disciples. Then he washed their feet. And in chapter 14, he begins talking with them. He's comforting them. They're concerned. They're worried. And they were afraid to even come to Jerusalem during the Passover. But now they're here. And they're still very frightened. And they have great reason to be. You know, sometimes people might say to you, don't worry. It's easy to say. And Jesus is really going to say, I don't want you to let your heart be troubled. But this is these verses of Scripture set to a tune that I guess I already knew this verse, as we used to say on the playground, by heart. But I hope that during this time of great troubling, that these words would also be a comfort to you as they are to me. Jesus said, let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. Let not your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. Let's look at the rest of those slides right there. The next set is going to take us right into John's Gospel, chapter 14, and starting with the first verses. I'm so proud to have our pew Bibles now, and I hope I'm trusting God to use those in very unexpected ways. It's a new ministry for us. It's not perhaps the most amazing thing we might have ever done, but I'm hoping that those Bibles will come into use not only by you, but by anyone who happens to come into our church who doesn't have a Bible. The large print edition, page 1664, has John's Gospel, chapter 14. On the fine print, or the smaller print, perhaps the normal print, is page 755. I have noticed sometimes that people are reluctant to look into the Scriptures or even to follow along. Sometimes we ministers have a habit, a bad habit, of requesting that the congregation join us by looking at a passage, and we have already either quoted it or read it and moved on by the time they found it. But we need to be more careful. The most important things in a part of any message or sermon or lesson are the Scriptures. It's not what I say about the Scriptures, but everything about what I say should be an attempt to direct you or get your attention to look at what God says. It's not important what I think or what I say. I don't have the answers for all of life's questions. I don't have solutions to all of even my problems. But God does. And so my ministry is not so much saying, hey, look at me, or listen to me, or here's what I have to say, or here's what I think. That's all vanity. What I want to do is create a thirst in your life for finding out what God says, what the Bible says, what His truth is. We talked today about your truth and my truth. Maybe we all have things that we think individually is true. But be very careful with that, because the only thing that really matters is spending a lifelong pursuit of finding out what God thinks is true, what God says is true, what God believes, what God has revealed to us. I want us to look at this. Jesus is still in that upper room, and his 11 apostles are with him. Judas has left. And so this is a message and very personal, heartfelt words just for the men in that room. And he knows that this is going to be a tremendous... He knows what he's going to experience and the great things that he's going to suffer as he gives his life for us. I don't understand everything about the plan of God and why Jesus had to die. I can explain it theologically. I can preach messages about it. But I can't stand here and tell you that the way, I guess I'm more akin to that youth musical that they sang to us when I was at Willie Springs Baptist Church. What a strange way to save the world. We just celebrated Christmas. Easter is a greater mystery to me than even Christmas. The workings of God. I can't stand and say, oh yes, I'm an expert in all of that. I see it all very clearly. I really don't. And yet I guess I would offend many others in the world today who say, you need to have a reasonable faith. You need to understand and realize that everything about what we believe has a factual, evidentiary foundation. Well, I want to believe all of that, but as a human being, all the evidence doesn't seem to be all that profound to me. Questions seem to be of less importance to me right now. There was a time when I was driven by finding answers to biblical or spiritual or the questions of Christianity. I think you will find if you pour your life into knowing Him. Paul, that's what Paul said. He said that I may know Him in the power of His resurrection. I want to know Him. Not to know about Him, not to be able to perceive or comprehend everything that He did and said, but have a real, a genuine personal relationship, a spiritual relationship with Jesus. I want us to look at this. Let not your heart be troubled. Now, that's important right there because I want to say this, and I think you might agree with me, and yet we might all still be confounded by it. A great deal about the way you feel and your state of mind has to do with your will. Let not your heart be troubled. In other words, you can make a decision. You can decide. There are some mental and spiritual steps that you can take where you can decide whether you're going to be worried or troubled or concerned or you're just not. Norman Vincent Peale many years ago called it the power of positive thinking. I think he drew a lot of followers and also a lot of detractors as well. What is your attitude? Well, you can decide, you can draw a line right here and say, okay, I'm not going to worry about this. It's possible. Someone said, you know, about 90% of the things that I worry about never come to pass. That's me all over. I worry about things. You know, most of the employees that I serve during the week, they've kind of been loosey and goosey for the last 2 weeks. They've had holiday. And when they come back tomorrow, they will not have been at work for about 2 weeks. And guess what? Their computer's not going to work. Nothing's going to start up. They can't get access to their email, and so our phones are just going to ring and the tickets are going. And I'm already kind of thinking, I think I'm just going to take the rest of the day to worry about tomorrow. I might even stay up all night tonight, get a jump on it. I have to overcome many weaknesses in my personality and in my attitude. Yogi Berra once said that winning a ball game is about 90% half mental. I don't know how that works out with the math, but he's exactly right. Being confident, winning, being assured is about 90% half mental. Our attitude. Jesus said, let me tell you this, don't let, in other words, if you're troubled, if you're worried, if you're concerned, it's because you've let yourself. And I believe in that. I know that that's true. And I wish that I could just turn it off like a switch. Maybe you can. But I know that He's challenging us and He's saying this is a way that you can discipline yourself. If this is possible, I wouldn't tell you this if it were not possible. Don't let it happen. Just figure out a way, find a way, learn what it means to say, okay, I could sit right here, right now, and just wring my hands and worry about this, or Jesus said it is possible for you to let not your heart be troubled. So don't do it. Just stop it. It's possible. Faith can impact our emotions. Our trust in God, if it is of any value at all, it must make it possible for us to overcome such weaknesses as fretting. I like the 37th Psalm. It says, don't fret. These are frets on a guitar. Don't fret. The psalmist said, don't fret. Fret not. I don't play the violin for you as much as I might play the mandolin and the guitar and the ukulele. You know why I don't play the violin very much? It doesn't have any frets. You just have to guess where to put your fingers. And so my violin, you think, man, that ukulele sounds terrible. And you've heard my violin. It is a struggle, but let me tell you, for me, and it may be for you, I work very hard. I pray, and I work very hard every day because I know my mentality is one of my hindrances, and I have to say, I can't let this bother me. I can't let this stop me. I can't let these thoughts and these feelings get me down. I can't let this put me out of the game. I mustn't. The clouds may come. I may have negative thoughts. There may be a pessimism in my heart, but I have to get past that. If I'm going to have a life that is a life of celebration and enjoy my family and enjoy the blessings of God, I've got to be able to get beyond the things that would tear me down and push me down and hold me down, and you do too. If it were not possible, Jesus wouldn't have said, don't get it. Don't let it get you. Don't let it get you. You believe in God, believe also in me. Now, I know that there are people in the world who don't believe in God. But Jesus knew these men particularly and specifically. They were born into Jewish Hebrew families, and they had been instilled with a basic, fundamental faith in the existence of a Creator.
That's right.
And it was ingrained into them. It was a part of their very being. It was a part of their soul. And Jesus said, I know that when I found you, when I called you, when we started this journey, I knew that you already believed that there was a God. He said, believe also in me. I think that was a bigger stretch for them than perhaps it is for us. We've heard about Jesus also. I've heard about Jesus all my life. Even when I didn't go to Sunday school, anytime our grandmother came to stay with us, she always sang and talked about Jesus. She loved Jesus. He's saying, you believe in God. And they were facing a terrible time. These are the worst days of their lives. Have you ever had the worst day of your life? Do you know that something else may come along that's worse than what you already marked? Well, that was the worst day of my entire life. Our lives can have turning points or tragedies. The worst day. These are the worst days of Jesus and the disciples' lives. And he says, believe in me. Believe in me. I do not want you to believe in me. I don't want you to trust me or rely upon me. Your pastor. You may have someone that you love and care for, someone who is dear to you. Please do not sink everything in your life on that person. Any other human being. And most assuredly, don't convince yourself that you must have self-confidence and you must believe in yourself above all other things. No, believe in Jesus. That is our message. You're not going to make it through this time by believing in the government. Do you think the President of the United States is going to fix everything and he's going to lead us through? Do you believe the governor or any senator or representative is going to solve our problems and lift us up and lead us out? I have no confidence in any of those things. Do you think that great doctors and physicians and medical leaders that lead our country, do you believe that they're going to give us solid, clear answers as to how to determine our health? I wish that it were so. Believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. Now that's a strange thing to say, isn't it? Jesus has told us a lot of things. Do you know the things that Jesus told us? You should spend your whole life studying the things that Jesus told us. And then interspersed in all of that of learning as a disciple the things that Jesus said. What are all the things that he didn't tell you? He said, if it were not so, I would have told you. There are things he's told us. You know what? I think there's a lot more things that he hasn't told us. If it were not so, I would have told you. I'm going to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also. And where I go, you know, and the way you know. Let's start with that last verse first and just tuck it away. Where I go, you know, and the way you know. Well, in the very next verse, and if God gives me grace, I'll preach on that next. One of the disciples said, Lord, we don't know where you're going. How can we know the way? And Jesus right here saying, no, you know it. There are things you know, things he's taught you, things he's poured into you, things that he's incorporated into you. When he became a part of your life, there are things you know that you do not realize. There are things that I know. They're a part of my spiritual DNA, a part of our reflection and our meditation, a part of our prayer, a part of our study is discovering those hidden truths and principles and precepts that he's placed in our lives. Believe me, there are things that God has instilled in you through Christ that you have at your disposal, that I have, that are there for us to take advantage of, that we have never employed at all. That's a part of the life of discipline and study and reflection. And we've got to have quietness in our life. We need to have worship in our life. We need to have devotion. And there needs to be a calmness in our life as we search out within us the Christ who lives there. Jesus says, there are things you know. In the Gospel of John, we see from chapter 20 on that there are several occasions where the Bible just says, all of a sudden the disciples said, he told us about that. We knew about that. I remember that he mentioned that. Now that I think back on it, this is exactly what he said would happen. And they began to say, hey, we knew this all along. Find those things in you. Don't always be dependent upon some preacher, some pastor, some teacher, some person who's spouting off some kind of truth. The Lord of life lives within you, and your answers may be there. Find in the calmness between you and your God that Jesus, whom you do believe in, to find out the things that you already truly know. that can make a difference. Let's look at the next slide, Carter. I don't know if you noticed this, but the word you, or a form of the word you, appears many times in the passage that I just read. Now, the first line words are a command. Let not your heart be troubled. That's an imperative sentence. Remember when they taught us in school and grammar that if it was a command, the you was there, but it's, what would they call it? You remember?
Implied.
It was implied or understood. The you is implied or understood. So we say it means you let not your heart be troubled. In the Greek language, that you is not just implied or understood. It's actually a part of the syntax and grammar. It's present. The word let or allow or provide for has a second person plural ending on it. That means you. It's not just see you throw the ball, it's you throw the ball. It's not just come here, it's you come here. So there's a couple of occasions here where the you is understood. But look at these other yous that are just plainly written. Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, and he says, believe also in me. It's another imperative sentence where the you is understood. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I don't prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also. Where I go, you know, and the way you know. Look at the next slide here, Carter. Here is a learning tool for Greek students. And here are the forms of the personal pronoun. And it says on the left-hand side, ego, or the word I, su is the Greek word for you. And it just means like one person, you, su. And then autos, alte, altais, he, she, or it. He threw the ball, she threw the ball, it caught the ball. And then hemais is we. And then humais is all of you, or what the grammar writer calls you all. It sounds very southern, doesn't it? Altoi, altai, or alta is they. I show this because in that text that I just read of John 14, 1 through 5, all of those yous mean all of you, each of you. Look at what we have here. He says, there's God, and then there's me, Jesus said. You believe in God, believe also in me. But then he said, then this is really about, it's not about God. You believe in God, believe also in me. He said, what I'm talking to you about is about me and God and all of you. Y'all. You all. All of you. Look at the next slide there. There it is again. It's just the same slide. You and me. Us. Holiday time, one of the most wonderful things about our past or even our present, perhaps our future, is when we get to share it with someone. Randy was sharing with me that even his beloved family members who live a long way from him sent him the kinds of things that he enjoys the most. All kinds of videotapes and clothing and candy. That's wonderful. I got those kinds of things. What helps us through troubling times is God, yes, and Jesus. But there is something about what you and I have and what He has done for us and who we are to Him and the promise He has made to us. It's the y'all-ness. It's being able to count on each other and depend upon each other, rely upon each other. It's our need for each other. It's not just a religion that's about God, or even just a religion that's about Jesus and Christianity. As far as God and Jesus are concerned, it's all about us. That's astounding. That's astounding. All of this, Jesus said, you. Not just you, but all of you. Each of you. You all. Let me ask you to go back and read all of the letters in the New Testament written by Paul the Apostle and see how many times he uses the two words, you all. You all. He includes us. He enwraps us. He encloses us. He loves us. And He's concerned in His Word, and He says, well, let me tell you some things. He says, everything that I do is for you. I'm going to prepare a place for you. And if I prepare a place for you, I will come back again for you. To receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also. We're included. We're not left out. We're a part. We're the greatest consideration in the plan of God through Christ. And Jesus is saying, this is going to be tough. This is going to be hard. But He said, that's all right. That's all right. All of you are under God's eye. I hope that you feel included and that you realize that you're a part. There may be people who exclude you or don't accept you, people who don't approve of you, or people who reject you or discount you, people who ignore you, or people who don't even know you or even care about you at all. Jesus says, everything about me that I came to bring is for you all. Let me pray for you right now. If there's anything between you and the Lord Jesus, let me say, is there anything that worries you, anything that concerns you or troubles you, that pushes you away from Him, let not your heart be troubled. Believe in God, believe in Jesus, and yes, realize that you are a part of the family of God. A part of what God did and is continuing to do through Christ. You are a part, a specific, particular part of the allness that God pays attention to, that He recognizes, that He blesses. Father, if there's anyone here today who is troubled, and it is keeping them from the peace and the power that can be ours, I pray that you'd save them from that. Pull them through. Let them see that they're a part of the all. For I ask it, Lord Jesus, in your name. Amen. Our invitation is always open, and I'm not going to ask Danny to lead us in a hymn of invitation or for Liz to play today, but I do want you to know that anytime you need to speak with me or talk with me, or if I can pray with you, even our family member called this week and said, I'd like for Dennis to come to the hospital, and I was happy to do that, even though it was a sad occasion, a difficult time. Call me. My job is to help you find Him. God bless you all. I hope that you have.
Andy wanted to remind us about the shoeboxes. January is toothbrushes and toothpaste.
Okay. We're starting again, toothbrushes and toothpaste. Check and see if you have any Christmas cards out there before you leave. And let's start on our Christmas boxes again. The other ones, last year's has been delivered. They've spread joy. Let's start again, all right? Toothbrushes, toothpaste. Thank you, Andy. I appreciate that. God bless you all. Please be careful going home. Keep in touch with each other.